In 2014, two things happened. I joined Twitter and Narendra Modi was elected as Prime Minister of India. There is one big lesson that I learned in those 10 years. But to understand what that is, I first need to explain a few things. Hinduism in India and Indian politics cannot be separated despite what you might think. The idea that India is a secular country, it's actually a lie. Yes, you can wave the Constitution in my face and read it directly, but whatever. Because in practice, it's a joke. Secularism is premised on one major point. It's supposed to prevent government from interfering with religion. So does India have this? The answer is no. Why? Because Hindu temples are controlled by local trusts that are formed by state governments. How exactly is this secular? To add even more fuel to the fire, churches and mosques, they don't have this added layer of control. Now me, I'm an outsider to India, and when I found this out, this issue blew my mind. I live in Canada, and I can't even fathom the government controlling the temples that we have here, or for any religious institution for that matter. Why does this matter though for someone like myself who is a Hindu, but is also an outsider to Indian politics? Well, very simply, it lays the foundation for the hot mess that is Indian politics. On the one side, you have almost 80% of the population being Hindu, but yet they can't control their own places of worship? Does that make sense? I was once that naive Hindu boy that thought the world loves all Hindus, but the minute Modi came to power, it was like all hell broke loose. And that's what prompted me to start paying attention more to Indian politics. But why though is this pseudo-secular thought never given any attention in Western countries? The answer to this brings me to my second point. Traditional media outlets are largely Hindu-phobic. Now what I'm saying here isn't anything earth-shattering. Many Hindus have noticed the Hindu bias for a number of years, and it reared its ugly head this past year after the inauguration of the Ram Janmabhoomi Temple. Groups like the Hindu American Foundation and Kona have been leading this charge in countering the media biases. Standard talking points used in traditional media include the frequent portrayal of Hindu nationalism using terms like muscular and violent and fascist to negatively influence opinions against India's democratically elected government. Persecution of minorities is also something that gets a lot of media play as well. But how exactly are minorities persecuted in India when it's the Hindus that can't even control their own places of worship? Journalists also form a big part of this problem, as they write constantly how democracy is under threat. And over again, they are called out for recycling their articles every single year and getting paid for it. But hear me out now. I am a Hindu. I am not an Indian citizen. But when you combine this pseudo-secularism with traditional media narratives portraying India in a negative light, I came to my realization. In 10 years of following Indian politics as an outsider and watching from the sidelines as a Hindu, it taught me something. The idea of an assertive Hindu scares the rest of the world. Why is this, you may ask? Well, number one, we are the last surviving ancient civilization of the world. You can call us heathens, you can call us pagans, that's all fine, because in other eyes, that's what we are. The traditional Hindu narrative that the world uses can only survive if Hindus are subservient to another power. We are simply tolerated, provided that we toe the line and stay within our limits. Now, when Modi came into power in 2014, I remember reading all the newspaper headlines, and honestly, you would think that the world was coming to an end. Well, here we are, 10 years later. The world hasn't ended, but for some reason, he scares the bejesus out of the rest of the world. Why is this? A positive, assertive Hindu is an anomaly. They're like a blip in the matrix, which is why when I came onto the YouTube scene, I typically got labeled as some type of Modi fanboy or Hindu nationalist, or my favorite one, an RSS stooge. And this isn't coming from outsiders. This is coming from within my own Indo-Caribbean community. When I started my journey into YouTube, I simply wanted to focus on creating videos on education and trying to piece together why Hindu tradition and practices are relevant to my generation. But I slowly started realizing that any type of Hindu pride is met with resistance. So you might be asking yourself, why are you even talking about this? The sad reality is that the perception of Hinduism to people like myself growing up outside of India has very real consequences on whether Hinduism can survive. Would you call yourself a Hindu if all you ever heard about Hinduism that it was a fascist ideology that seeks to oppress minorities? The answer is no. When there is headline after headline questioning whether democracy is dying in India, of course this is going to have an effect on people like myself, because how do you prevent democracy from dying in India? The answer is very simple. You have to break Hinduism apart. In my 10 years of watching from the sidelines as a Hindu, this pseudo-secular attitude that is practiced in India has led to a situation where the very thought of a Hindu asserting himself is scary. This is why traditional media pushes back and feeds the narrative that any political party that is openly Hindu poses a threat to the rest of the world. But if you were to step back and actually examine historically how Hinduism has treated other religions, you know for a fact that our general motto is to openly allow anyone to continue the practice of their own religion. This is why every Hindu living outside of India needs to pay attention to Indian politics. Hinduism without India isn't Hinduism. The two are linked together, and for every Hindu outside of India, you should want to see a strong India that identifies as a Hindu. It's okay to disagree about how the country should be run, but that disagreement should never mean the breaking apart of Hinduism. Can you imagine if the whole world was Hindu? You should check out this next video that I made to see what that would be like. Thank you once again for watching. Please hit like, share this video with your friends and family, and I'll be sure to catch you in the next one. Om Shanti.